My life changed over dinner. I sat at my parents' oversized dining table, absently pushing food around my plate while my sister-in-law Amanda prattled on about her latest charity work. Then, with a smirk and a too-sweet voice, she dropped the bomb. "Oh, by the way," she said, eyes glinting with satisfaction, "your precious Max is making another family very happy now." She paused, savoring the moment. "I took him to a shelter 2 weeks ago and brought you a replacement. Bet you didn't even notice." The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against my plate. Max, my champion golden retriever. The dog I'd raised from a puppy who had won 3 national competitions. Replaced? My gaze dropped to the dog lying beneath the table at my feet. He looked remarkably like Max, but now that I thought about it, his behavior had been off. "You did what?" My voice was calm, too calm, but my hands had begun to shake. Amanda waved a dismissive hand. "It's for the best. You were obsessed with those ridiculous dog shows. Now, a deserving family has a beautiful purebred, and you have a rescue who needs love." I helped everyone. I glanced around the table. My brother Tom stared at his plate. My parents shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Their silence was nothing new. They had always preferred keeping the peace over confronting Amanda. "Interesting," I said, taking a slow sip of water. Amanda's smile faltered slightly. She expected outrage, maybe even tears. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Max wore a GPS tracker. Not the obvious kind, but a sleek, high-tech device embedded in his collar. Years in the dog show circuit had taught me to take precautions. "You had no right," I said quietly, pushing back from the table. "Max isn't just a pet. He's my partner, my business, my friend." Amanda rolled her eyes. "Oh please, he's just a dog. Besides, I did you a favor. That show circuit was making you unbearable. Always traveling, always training. Now you can actually enjoy having a normal pet." I stood pulling out my phone. A few taps brought up the GPS tracking app. Max's location pinged immediately, 30 miles away. The app's history mapped every stop he'd made in the past 2 weeks, including his time at the shelter and the address of the family who adopted him. "Where exactly did you take him?" I asked, though I already knew. "Happy Tales Shelter on 5th Street, Amanda said, smug. The family that adopted him was perfect. 2 kids, big yard, stay-at-home mom. Much better than wasting his life jumping through hoops for ribbons." Tom finally spoke. "Amanda, maybe you should have." "Oh, stop it, Tom," she snapped. Someone had to do something. She was turning into one of those crazy dog people. I ignored her and looked down at the imposter dog under the table. His eyes were soft, uncertain. None of this was his fault. "How did you pull this off?" Amanda preened. "Found him at another shelter last month. The resemblance was uncanny. I took Tom's house key, waited until you were at work. 1 dog out, 1 dog in. You were too busy to notice." The casual way she admitted to breaking into my home and stealing my dog made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. "And Max, he just went with you." "Well, he resisted at first," she admitted, "but treats did the trick. He's fine. Probably loving life as a normal dog instead of your show pony." I grabbed my things, including the imposter's leash. "I'm leaving." I turned to Amanda. "You should have thought this through better." She laughed. "What's there to think through? It's done. What are you going to do about it?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The drive home was tense. The replacement dog, Charlie, I decided, sat quietly in the backseat. First thing tomorrow, I check for a microchip and track down his original shelter. He deserved a real home, not to be used as a pawn in Amanda's twisted scheme. As soon as I got home, I called my friend Lisa, a dog show judge and an animal rights lawyer. "She did what?" Lisa's voice practically crackled through the phone. "I have proof," I said, pulling up the GPS data. "Every location, every stop." And she admitted at dinner that she stole my house key to do it. Lisa was already typing. "This is theft, plain and simple. And because of Max's competition titles and registered status, it's grand theft in most states. We'll get him back. And trust me, Amanda's going to regret ever touching your dog." As I got ready for bed, my phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "You're being awfully quiet." Finally realizing I did you a favor. I didn't reply. Let her think she'd won. Tomorrow would be full of surprises. Charlie whined softly from Max's bed. I patted the spot beside me, and he hesitated before jumping up, curling against my side. "Don't worry, boy," I murmured, scratching behind his ears. "We're going to fix this, for both you and Max." The next morning started with a barrage of phone calls. Lisa had already contacted Happy Tails Shelter and was orchestrating our next moves. "The shelter is horrified," she told me. "Amanda claimed she was your authorized representative, saying you were too distraught after a family death to handle Max's surrender. She even forged your signature." I clenched my jaw, refreshing the GPS tracker. Max was still at the same address in Oakwood. "Do we need the police?" "Already handled. I filed reports for theft and fraud. Given Max's value as a show dog and breeding stud, they're taking it seriously. Officers will meet us at the house." While waiting for Lisa, I decided to check into Charlie's past. His worn tag led me to Riverside Animal Shelter. One phone call confirmed my worst suspicions. "Yes, we remember him," the shelter manager said. "A woman named Amanda Wilson adopted him 3 weeks ago. She specifically requested a golden retriever with show-quality markings. Is something wrong?" Everything I said, explaining the situation. The manager was furious. "That's a violation of our adoption contract. We'll need him returned unless you'd like to adopt him properly." I glanced at Charlie, who watched me with quiet trust. "Let me get my own dog back first. Then we'll talk." Lisa arrived with Kevin, a canine trainer who had worked with Max at shows. "Figured we might need backup," she said. The drive to Oakwood was tense. A police cruiser was already waiting when we pulled up to a well-kept suburban home. Toys were scattered across the lawn. This wasn't a villain's lair. The family inside had no idea their new pet was stolen. As we approached the front door, Max's familiar bark rang out from the backyard. My heart clenched. A woman answered, her expression shifting from polite curiosity to concern as she took in our group. The officers explained the situation. Her face drained of color. "Oh my God," she whispered. "We had no idea. The shelter told us his owner couldn't care for him anymore." She turned to me, eyes brimming with guilt. "You must be devastated. He's such a wonderful dog." I swallowed hard. "I understand you didn't know, but Max is my dog. He's been with me since he was a puppy. He's not just a pet. He's my partner." Tears welled in her eyes. "My kids love him. Please, can I send them to school before we do this? I don't want them to see." "Of course," I said. Minutes later, she led us to the backyard. Max was playing with a rope toy carefree. Then he saw me. He froze. A split second later, he launched himself at me with a joyful bark. I dropped to my knees as he collided with me, tail wagging furiously. "Hey, buddy," I murmured, burying my face in his fur. "I found you." The woman wiped her eyes. "The way he reacted to you. I feel so stupid for not questioning it." Lisa stepped in. "You're not at fault. Amanda's paperwork was forged. If you'd like, we can help you find another dog, legally this time." While officers documented everything, I checked Max over. He was healthy but had lost some muscle tone. 2 weeks without training had softened him. "I'm pressing charges," I told Lisa. "Oh, Amanda's in deep trouble," she assured me. "Theft, fraud, forgery, and shelter violations. Plus, I've already informed the AKK. She won't be setting foot in a dog show again." The drive home was quiet, charged with emotion. Max rested his head on my shoulder, while Charlie watched from his spot beside Lisa. They seemed to recognize each other, but remained calm. My phone buzzed nonstop. Amanda had figured out her plan had unraveled. I finally answered. "How dare you involve the police?" she shrieked. "I was helping you. That dog was wasted on your stupid shows. You stole my dog, Amanda," I said evenly. "You forged my name. You broke the law. What did you think would happen? It was just a dog." "Tom agrees with me. You're being ridiculous." "Funny," I said, because Tom already called to apologize. He even offered to cover my legal fees. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "He what?" "You're facing criminal charges. Maybe you should call a lawyer instead of screaming at me." I hung up as we pulled into my driveway. Max bounded out of the car, running to his favorite spot in the yard. Charlie hesitated, watching him. Lisa nudged me. "What about Charlie?" I looked at the gentle dog who had been caught in Amanda's scheme. "First, I'll make sure he's taken care of. Then, well, maybe my house has room for 2 dogs." That night, as I got ready for bed, Max followed me from room to room, unwilling to let me out of his sight. Charlie watched from his new bed in the corner, already fitting into our routine. A text from Tom popped up. "Amanda's been served. She's hysterical. I had no idea she'd do this. I'm so sorry." I didn't reply. Tomorrow would bring more legal matters. But tonight, I had my dog back. Max jumped onto my bed, curling beside me. I scratched behind his ears, his favorite spot. "No one's ever taking you away again, buddy," I whispered. "I promise." The legal fallout from Amanda's actions was swift and unforgiving. 3 months after recovering Max, I sat in the courthouse watching my sister-in-law face the consequences of her choices. Lisa stood confidently before the judge. "Your Honor, this wasn't just a lapse in judgment. Ms. Wilson deliberately orchestrated the theft of a registered show dog, falsified legal documents, and violated multiple shelter agreements." Amanda sat stiffly beside her lawyer, the arrogance she once carried replaced by restless fidgeting. She had tried to frame it as a simple family dispute, but the evidence was undeniable. GPS data tracking Max's location, her recorded confession at dinner, and the forged shelter paperwork. Every detail pointed to premeditated theft. The judge's gaze sharpened as he flipped through the documents. "So you adopted a shelter dog for the sole purpose of using him as a stand-in for the one you intended to steal?" Amanda's voice wavered. "I was just trying to help. She's obsessed with those shows." "By committing fraud and theft?" The judge's expression hardened. "Your actions display a troubling disregard for both the law and the well-being of these animals." The final verdict exceeded our expectations. Amanda was sentenced to probation, ordered to pay substantial fines, and banned from adopting pets from any shelter in the state. She was also required to reimburse me for Max's lost competition earnings and cover the costs of Charlie's care. As for Charlie, he never left. I couldn't imagine sending him back after everything he had been through. He and Max had formed an unexpected bond. The champion show dog and the shelter rescue, each finding something they needed in the other. Outside the courthouse, Tom approached hesitantly. We hadn't spoken much since everything unraveled. "I left her," he said quietly. "This whole mess made me realize how controlling she's always been. I didn't see it before." I studied my brother, seeing the exhaustion in his eyes. "She needs help, Tom. Real help." "I know. Counseling is part of our separation agreement." He exhaled, watching Amanda disappear down the courthouse steps with her lawyer. "How are the dogs?" A small smile tugged at my lips. "They're great. Max is back in training and Charlie's learning fast. Turns out he's got a knack for agility courses." Life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Max returned to the show circuit, our brief absence explained as a family emergency. If anything, we were stronger now. Charlie became a fixture at every event, watching with an enthusiasm that made me wonder if he had a future in the ring himself. Amanda's actions rippled through the dog show community, prompting stricter security measures and verification policies at shelters. Lisa even helped draft new guidelines to prevent future thefts. My parents finally took a stand, no longer brushing Amanda's behavior under the rug. One afternoon, while watching Max and Charlie play in the yard, my mom sighed. "We should have stepped in sooner. Keeping the peace shouldn't mean ignoring the problem." 6 months after the trial, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from Amanda, written from her therapist's office as part of her court-mandated counseling. "I see now how wrong I was," she wrote. "I convinced myself I was helping, but I was only controlling and hurting the people around me. I'm sorry for what I did to you and to the dogs. You were right. They weren't just pets to be swapped out for my own convenience." I tucked the letter away, acknowledging the apology but unsure if I was ready to forgive. Time would tell if her change was real. 1 year after Amanda's reckless scheme fell apart, I stood in the winner's circle at the National Dog Show. Max had just won Best in Breed, his tail wagging proudly as he leaned against my leg. In the audience, my family watched, Mom, Dad, and Tom, all cheering. From the sidelines, Charlie let out an excited bark, his golden coat gleaming under the lights. He might not have been born for the competition world, but somehow he'd found his place in it. As I knelt beside Max, running my fingers through his fur, I smiled. Family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes the best families were the ones we built ourselves, 4 paws at a time.